I gotcha.
You're on.
All right, testing. Can everyone hear me? All right. Thank you. We're going to get started. Let us start with Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Margaret, please call the roll.
Tony Dorsey,
Here.
Tony Cinto, John Foreman,
Here.
Ann Sather,
Here.
Kevin Shively,
Here.
Nicole Satin,
Here.
Richard Wolf,
Here.
Mary Isaac. Here.
Thank you. We have 3 resolutions this evening for the Finance Committee. Mr. Foreman, will you please read Resolution 1, please?
Certainly. Resolution TC 30-88, be it resolved that $195,171 is hereby appointed from the fund balance to various accounts. Schedule attached.
We have a second. Who's here to speak on Resolution TC 3088? Good, how are you?
These are year-end transfers to close out fiscal year '24, and basically these are what's left over in the account that was not able to be transferred. There's election salaries, $12,119. Tax assessor for seasonal help, $111,000. Tax assessor professional, $21,000, and that's to deal with the appeals, etc. Purchasing salaries part-time, $4,548. Purchasing salaries overtime, $36,202, and that has to do with dealing with more bidding and assisting with the Board of Ed. Purchasing legal notices, $2,108. Building salaries overtime, $8,014, to do with more construction in town. And the total is $195,171.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Maria, on the elections, didn't we, or were we supposed to, or are we going to get money from the state to cover that on a grant, or was that something that was
I think
something
it's for
else?
this year coming up, but what happened was a couple of the staff people that work in the elections work overtime, more than 19 and a half hours in certain times of the year. Our munis system was not aware of, it didn't recognize the additional hours, and that's why we're short. Because it looks at what's the normal hourly hours for the year, and it didn't acknowledge that for a period of time they work 35 hours.
Is that because we did 3 elections this year?
No, I think it's normal
It's
every
normal.
year during election time, or,
Okay.
2024. And this year, 2025, will be extra hours too.
For the purchasing, it said part of it is Board of Ed. Are we allocating out of their budget, or does it come from the general
No,
fund?
yeah, it's strictly general fund right now, the town side. We've been talking about it for several years, but
Okay.
we haven't done that.
Are there any other questions? Are we able to pass this by unanimous consent? All in favor? Opposed? Passes. Thank you.
Can I ask it to be emergency legislation at the town council? Only because we're closing the year.
Okay. Do we need that recommendation now, or do we do it at council?
Put it in the minutes.
Okay.
That will be for all 3 of them.
For all 3, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilman Shively, can you read Resolution TC 30-89, please?
Certainly. Resolution TC 30-89, be it resolved that $120,523 is hereby transferred from contingency to various accounts. Schedule attached.
Have a second? Maria?
These are to cover shortfall due to union contract settlements. We normally are able to transfer within the department, And whatever we can transfer from that department, then it goes to contingency. Anything with salaries. As you can see, there's the finance, 7,000 was a supplemental from contingency, but 14,000 we're able to transfer. We'll be able to transfer within the department. Tax assessor, 14,000, 12,000 we're able to transfer. Tax collector, 19,000 was the transfer. And okay. Purchasing, 13,905. Technology, 5,000. Fire marshals, 42,000. Building salaries, 3,767, and the Mary Sherlock Counseling Centers, 8,119, for a total of 125,23.
Any questions? And this is coming from the contingency fund or general?
Correct. So we budget in contingency any contract that's not settled at the time of the budget,
Okay.
and then we make the transfers. And normally, we don't even require all of it because we're able to transfer some of it within the department.
For the contracts, do you know how far out from the date they were? So what was the variance?
I think the May was 2 years, and the Mathis was just probably a year. I'm sorry? Late. They were late.
So long was the contract?
I'm sorry?
How long was the contract?
It's usually a 3-year contract. I could get the details on the contracts for the council. Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Opposed? Okay, passes, thank you.
Councilman Taylor?
Councilman Taylor, can you please read TC 30-90?
Sure. Resolution TC 30-90, be it resolved that $39,266 is hereby appropriated from the fund balance to 010302000-578802, maintenance, replacement equipment building. There we go.
Do I have a second? Thank you. There was no backup on this. I know in the email there was, but there was none attached.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll provide the attachment for the full council, but basically, there was various emergency replacements and so forth at the town hall and other departments. There was restroom partitions replacements. There were attic access letter replacement here at town hall. There were some controls at EMS, senior center, Helen Plum building, counseling center, library, nature center, small. PD was a small one. But basically, the budget was $216,000. We spent $282,370 in repairs and maintenance. And out of that, $90,000 was for emergency. And so there was actually an overage of $72,000. We were able to absorb some of that deficit, and the only thing we need is the $39,000 to cover the shortfall.
Any questions? How far out are these invoices?
They're for the first.
They're paid, we're just-
They're already paid, fiscal
Okay.
year. They're all paid, everything's been paid.
Inverse, okay. All right, are there any other questions? All in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Do I have a motion to adjourn? I have a second? All in favor? Thank you all. Have a good evening.
meeting. We have a long agenda tonight. The first resolution I would ask to be brought up by Mr. Marsh. To the floor, please.
Certainly. Resolution TC 30-85, be it resolved that the Trumbull Town Council authorizes the submission of the funding application for the Local Prevention Council grant for the purpose of reducing vaping rates among 12 to 18-year-olds and identifies Vicky A. Tesoro for selectman as the individual authorized to sign the application and all subsequent amendments, reports, and related documents in order to administer and implement the project. Full resolution attached.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh. Is there anyone here to speak to the resolution?
Good evening. I'm Melissa McGarry. I'm the director of TPOD Trumbull's Prevention Partnership, and I'm here to request the town submit our funding application for Local Prevention Council grant funding from the State Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. They have designated $5,662.90 for Trumbull to do vaping prevention work, and we've been the Local Prevention Council doing this work since 2017.
Yeah.
Oh, is that it?
That's it.
That's it. Okay. You just stopped abruptly. I wasn't quite sure.
Unless you have any questions.
Are there any questions?
Can you tell us what efforts the ongoing efforts you are at vaping prevention?
Certainly. Our work with this $5,662.90 primarily revolves around education of our student population, their families, and the community. So it purchases educational materials that are in place for our middle school and high school health classes. It funds materials for our 9th grade forum, which is part of the curriculum, and it funds educational efforts that we do to promote vaping cessation programs for kids who may be using, and also supports our work in the schools to support the Juvenile Review Board and school administrators.
Any other questions? I have a question. I think it's fantastic what you do.
Thank you.
Can you tell us how much of an issue is this in the schools now?
It continues to be an issue. We do survey students every 2 years, grades 7th to 12th, so we've been able to track since 2017 the decline in vaping rates, and overall our vaping rates do continue to decline. We do struggle with a small population of students who have nicotine addiction, and our schools are constantly dealing with kids who may be using in bathrooms or in other spaces. But overall, we do see a decline because of the educational efforts, the amount of awareness amongst families. We're doing prevention at much younger levels. We're talking to students at like the 6th grade level, the 7th grade level. Our middle school rates have almost declined entirely. We have very, very few kids at the middle school level even vaping, and that's not the case for other communities. So prevention does work, and this grant funding is really helpful.
Is it more prevalent than smoking or less?
For our youth, it's more. It's the entry level. The research shows that young people who do vape are more likely to smoke later, because once you have a nicotine addiction, you'll get it wherever you can get it. But the vaping is the entry level, and it's fruity flavors and bright colors and probably more easily accessible than traditional smoking methods.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. With that, can we call it for a vote? All in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next resolution is Resolution TC 30-86. Mr. Buswell, will you please bring it to the floor?
Sure. Resolution TC 30-86, be it resolved that Vicky A. Tesoro, First Selectman, is hereby authorized as the individual authorized to sign the grant application to the Connecticut Secretary of the State and all subsequent contracts, amendments, reports, related documents in order to administer and implement the early voting program. Full resolution attached.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak to this?
Jean Rabineau, I'm one of the registrars of voters. This is essentially another grant from the state to enable the town to absorb some of the additional costs from early voting. It is very similar to the grant application that we got for before the first primary. We're asking for a little extra money because the state's making it available and because we have some hard costs this time in addition to overtime. We're going to need some more freestanding voting booths and some other things for the 14 days of early voting.
All right, thank you. Do we have any questions from the floor? Okay, good.
Are you guys gonna send out pamphlets in the next week or so, like saying where to vote for early voting? Is it gonna be in the library, the hours and all that
Yes,
stuff?
postcards, red, white, and blue postcards have been designed and are sent to the printer after competitive bidding, and they give not only the location for each voter who receives the card for where they will vote on November 5, plus the hours of operation of the polls, but every day of available early voting, the location in the library community room, and the extra hours that will be available on the final Tuesday and Thursday. So all of that will be on the card.
Thanks.
Any other questions from the floor? Madam First Selectman?
Thanks. I'll just take this opportunity to say that all that information is on the town website, in the spotlight on the homepage, and it's on the town Facebook page. I recently did a robocall last week about the Hillcrest program, and within that call there was information about early voting as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other questions or comments? All right. Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you. Resolution number 3. Ms. Cardano, could you bring it to the floor, please?
Certainly. Resolution TC 30-87, be it resolved that the acceptance of funding in the amount of $842,400 from CTDOT lots for the Whitney Avenue Sidewalk Phase 2 Trail Connection Improvement Project and identifies Vicky A. Tesoro, First Selectman, as the individual authorized to sign the application, agreement, and all subsequent amendments, reports, and related documents in order to administer and implement the project. Full resolution attached.
Thank you. Second? Second. Good evening.
Good evening. This resolution is for the trail connection from Dunellen to the Quonic River Trail at Whitney. This is the second phase. Basically, the first phase we did from Long Hill Green down to Dunellen, and this is for the next section.
How long does it you anticipate it to take to install?
This is actually going to be a difficult section. There's a retaining wall. There's actually very limited detour routes around this section. It's probably going to be a long duration, or a shorter duration if we completely close a road. If we do a one-lane bypass, it'll be a little bit shorter, but longer duration.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Mr. Cinto?
How long did phase 1 take?
Phase 1 was done during COVID. It was actually relatively short.
5-6 years?
No. From construction.
The whole thing.
I can't. And
Probably took like 10 years.
On your microphone?
I remember when we voted on this the first time, it had to be at least 10 years ago.
that wasn't
I mean, from the very, very beginning, not the construction part, the design phase, the whole thing.
I don't have all those dates.
Could you try and find that out?
Sure, we could.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Ms. Gardano.
Thank you. There's no match to these funds, right?
No,
This is just,
so this is a LOTSIP grant, so the town has paid for the design.
Yep.
And the state pays for the construction.
okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Resolution TC 30-84. Mr. Cinto, will you bring that to the floor, please?
Thanks, Joe. Resolution TC-84. Be it resolved that Chapter 17, Streets, Sidewalks, and Highways of the Municipal Code is hereby amended to include Section 17-98, removal of snow and rubbish from the sidewalks and other property. Public hearing, October 7th, 2024. Town Council.
Thank you, Mr. Cinto. There's someone second, Ms. Sardano. Good evening.
Can I share some maps?
That's okay.
The map that I share with you it lays out the sidewalks throughout town. We have to just do one slight update, which is the Reservoir Avenue community that has just arrived there in the last few years. Those I see are not on the bottom of this map, so those will just have to be added. But the estimates are that have been shared with me are approximately 26 to 27 miles of sidewalks in town. The responsibility for clearing sidewalks is in the hands of the Parks Department, who normally during the winter, they end up somewhere around after the seasonals are end their term for the summer. They end up at manpower between 10 and 12 men in that department. Their first responsibility for response, obviously, are the buildings. So they'll do the town halls, the libraries, all of those key facilities, health department. And then they start going back to sidewalks that approach schools to be sure that they've cleared those. And then after that, they start going back into a Main Street sidewalk or a Churchill Road, White Plains Road, those type of sidewalks. The challenge that we had, not last year because it was relatively mild, but about 2 years ago, we were in a cycle where the storms were coming right behind each other. And we never arrived at cleaning some of those sidewalks just because the next storm would hit and we had to open town hall, we had to open the libraries, we had to open the health department and the senior center. So it's a revolving door for that small team of resources that we have in the Parks Department to try to maintain the sidewalks. So much conversation has taken place over the last several years, and we're one of the few communities that don't have that responsibility to clear the sidewalks assigned to the adjacent property owner. Pretty much all of the other communities around us are it's inherently an inherent responsibility that when you clear the driveway, whoever is doing that clears the front sidewalk also. So the concern with not being able to really get to that cleanup in a timely fashion because of the resources just aren't there, we shoulder all the responsibility. Someone gets hurt there, it's the town's responsibility because they didn't clear the sidewalks. But it's just that we're not able to with the resources that we have. That's the reason that we've had the conversation about this ordinance.
Mr. Buswell?
Hi, George. If it snows on Friday morning, who's responsible for all of the schools, elementary schools, middle schools, high school, that snow removal on the weekends? Is that public Works? Is that Board of Ed? Is that Parks and Rec?
Board of Ed maintains the schools. So if it's on the school property, the parking lots, the sidewalks in the school complex, that's all handled by the Board of Ed.
Okay, thanks.
Stanton?
Hi, George. Thank you. Is there a way to give an opportunity for residents to apply for an exception? So if we have an elderly couple that lives, and physically can't get to their sidewalk, is there an opportunity for that person to apply for an exception?
I don't know that there's an opportunity to apply for an exception, but what normally happens in those cases, and I could tell you growing up in Bridgeport, in 3 different locations, elderly neighbors, the neighbors on either side just kind of pitched in and took care of them. It's part of the community. So I would assume that would be something that would happen here, judging by what I've seen here in Trumbull.
Yeah, I agree with you. My only concern is because this is going to be a new.
Yeah,
people
absolutely.
You can't grandfather people into.
Right.
You know what I mean. So it's just, it will be new and.
It's
it's
completely new.
concerning to some.
And it's something that I think that we've been strategizing on what will be the communication behind this, because obviously it's not about being punitive. It's about making the town safe and having a system where everything is maintained. So we can work through that. There's the first year there are no penalties. It's an information year. It's constant information going to homeowners that we see that aren't participating the way that they're expected to, and then just having it grow that way. It doesn't have to be that we come out. We don't need to come out of the gate with any sort of punitive measures, because it's really not the intention.
Just go ahead.
Hi, George.
Good evening.
I understand what you're saying, that, a good neighbor's going to help a good neighbor out, but you don't always have good neighbors.
Absolutely.
That being said, what happens to the people who go on vacation and they're in Florida during the week of a snowstorm?
All of those, it's a great question. I really don't have an answer for that. If they're contracting that they have their driveway plowed, whoever does that is going to pull the blower out and do that. If they do it themselves, I really don't have an answer for that.
See, the problem I have is there's a lot of unanswered questions, and I think we need to get answers to them. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Cinto?
Real quick. I'm not sure, Dan, if on the verbiage of this resolution, the removal of can you explain to me a couple things? Rubbish. What is rubbish? So if a tree falls on it, what if a tree?
I'm not
falls?
sure.
This is what I'm saying. If this says snow and ice, okay, that'd be wintertime. Rubbish could be the middle of the summer, and a tree could fall down. And then this says no natural accumulation. So if you do it and the snowplow plows it over you, so those are my 3 things on this.
Well, let me tell you my personal experience growing up in Bridgeport, as Mr. Estrada did. If the snowplow pushed it back onto the sidewalk, we had to go out and reshovel. Just, it's the way it is. It still is natural snow. But there's not much you can do about that, assuming that you still have to have a clean sidewalk, because the sidewalk is there for somebody who's walking. As far as rubbish is concerned, I'm not certain that rubbish is really a
a problem. I think towns where people put their rubbish out on the street for pickup, it's more of a problem. But if certainly it would not be appropriate to have garbage, rubbish, however you want to describe it, down your sidewalk and not pick it up. In my own opinion, I don't know in terms of the maybe Ms. Gordiano has input as I think the author of this. Any other thoughts about it? But from a point of view of the go ahead, I'll let you.
In Bridgeport, the term rubbish meant accumulation of anything that would prohibit safe pedestrian traffic. So yes, we're talking about snow, but this can also be that just somebody piles up, they decided that they're going to empty out their house and in 2 weeks they're going to have somebody swing by and grab it, and they pile it on the sidewalk and you can't pass through there. This ordinance would allow us or the police department to knock on that door and ask them to remove that.
Now, does this also deal with down trees, cracked sidewalks, sinkholes? If the sidewalk cracks and somebody trips in June.
Well, if some sidewalk cracks, I'm not sure that comes under the definition of what we're talking about. We're talking about cleaning the sidewalk.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the whole general thing. Sinkholes,
Town is not going to come out and unless somebody notifies the town that there's a problem with the sidewalk. Town is still responsible for the installation of the sidewalk. But, that's something it's something to be discussed here in committee. All right, this was brought up a few months ago, and the idea, and it never came out of committee, it never went to the council. This is the body that would work on the language. If people have amendments that you want to make to the particular language, this is the place to do it. If you think that it's necessary to work on it now and come back again in another month to review it or revise it, again, that's within the jurisdiction of the committee. If it never comes out of committee, then the council's not going to vote on it. If you have a majority here who vote in favor of sending it to the council, then the council will deal with it, and there will be a public hearing the night of the vote at the council level. All right.
Mr. Marsh.
Echoing some of the comments here, I think one of the consequences of this ordinance is that it is a diametric shift in the legal liability for those sidewalks during the winter months. And I think that needs to be communicated to the residents very clearly, because if somebody slips and falls on the sidewalk fronting your house and you arguably didn't do a good job either shoveling it or putting abrasives down, that homeowner is going to face a lawsuit. And I think there's a whole, we live in a very litigious society, and I think there's just a paradigm that has happened because you have a municipal right-of-way that was put in by the town without the homeowner's permission. It was just done on property that is generally considered not to be the responsibility of the homeowner, and now we're shifting that responsibility back. I'm not saying we shouldn't have the ordinance, because I think it makes sense from a practical perspective, but you're really changing the dynamic, and before this is implemented, I think the residents who are affected need to be notified, and so they're aware, because there is a real concern on my part that failure to properly clear the sidewalks is going to lead to injury, and then as well as I do that everyone gets sued in that instance, and the homeowner is going to be facing a claim.
I'll respond to, first of all, the homeowners insurance would defend them in that case, assuming that they have insurance. I don't think it's a bad idea to invite the public or the people who are specifically impacted to a public hearing. All right. Right now, the basic requirement is that there's a notice goes in the newspaper. There's going to be a public hearing on next Monday night with regard to this issue. It certainly would be. This may be a situation where you would want to have the public hearing at the committee level, so that while you're working on the language and whether or not you're going to go forward with it, that the public has an opportunity to participate here at the committee, and that would satisfy the requirement of a public hearing in any event if the public hearing took place here at the committee level. And the other thing is that sending direct notification to people who are impacted is also not a bad idea, as Mr. Marsh has suggested, rather than just assuming that everybody's going to read the public notice in the Connecticut Post.
Thank you. Interesting comment. I have a question as a follow-up to Mr. Marsh's question, that I understand to remove the snow off the sidewalk, and the town is responsible for the sidewalk, the installation. But you have a hard frost, it heaves the sidewalk, the homeowner comes out, shovels the sidewalk, someone walks by, because it's heaved, it's now uneven, and somebody trips and falls and sues. The homeowner has done their job, they've removed the snow, but nature's taken its course and it's moved the sidewalk. Who's liable?
Well, now
Is
you
the
have a law
homeowner
school
liable, or is
exam question
what's
about
that?
proximate cause, and we'll go back to Paul's graph, Mr. So that's a lawyer joke.
Answer that, Jason.
Yeah. So basically, the insurance companies will be fighting that out.
But still, before you start fighting it out, it's still a question that is raised. So I do agree that there's a number of items here that need to be discussed, and I quite frankly was surprised to see it on the agenda again. I think it needs some more work, and I think that maybe there should be a public hearing at the committee level to discuss this further, and it's not that I'm taking one side or the other. I think there's just a lot of questions here. Mr. Buswell?
So who would be responsible for adding the additional information that we're looking for? Is this a George Estrada? Is this a town attorney? Is this the council person that was behind their support for this? Like, where do we get to all the details to be able to give us the information to say whether we want to move forward with it or not?
I would suggest that if the minutes reflect what information it is that you're looking for, then we would have to decide or figure out who has that information and get it back to the next committee meeting. I mean, there are various questions that have come up. Some of them are maybe within the town attorney's jurisdiction or area of responsibility. Some of it may be Mr. Estrada's. If you can get it into the minutes, or if you want to distribute a list of questions before it's taken up at the next meeting, we'll be happy to deal with it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Lemoyne.
I have a question. Chief Lombardo's here. I think I saw him. I have a question for the chief. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening.
Chief, under the resolution, Part E, it says the responsibility for enforcing this is with the police department. I want to know your thoughts on that.
Well, Mr. Estrada and I have discussed this at length, and notification to homeowners that they haven't cleared it within 24 hours and that they have to clear it, and that type of responsibility will be with the Public Works Department. Naturally, if one of our officers sees something that they think is a hazard, they can address it. They do have the authority to do that once the ordinance is, if it's passed. But generally, that's the way I see it happening, is that Public Works will call us and say, gee, we can't get this person to have the snow or ice removed, and then we would go out and probably ask again, will you please have this removed, and try to see if they're trying to work on getting it done, and if they are, probably give them more time. And then at some point, if they just won't comply, we'll give them a ticket.
Okay, so you're not the first line of...
Oh, no.
Okay.
No.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Ms. Quagliano.
Beef, don't walk away. Hold on. Sorry. You spoke with counterparts in other towns, correct?
Yes.
Can you share a little bit about what other municipalities do in this area and how police and public works interact, and whether there are any issues?
Pretty much the same as I just described that we would do in Trumbull, that I would communicate with the Public Works Director, and he would give me, if there was a street address where somebody wasn't complying and they've tried, then we would go out and say, listen, you have to comply with this, or you're going to be subject to a fine. And if they're still not going to do it, we'd issue a ticket. Now, I spoke to a counterpart of mine, a chief in another community, and said it's not too often that they're involved in it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Boswell.
George, I got a question. So your department is the one, you said 10 to 12 people?
Yes.
My question is will this be a cost savings? And if so, how much?
I don't believe that we're looking at it as a cost saving. It just allows them to get back to a town hall or other buildings and really get them under control. Where right now we're going through rotation from critical buildings to sidewalks, to secondary sidewalks. It would allow them to just maintain complete public safety. A perfect example is the front of this building where these bricks glaze over. We had guys here last year, 2 guys here, because we had a constant frost freeze, or the mist would come down. We'd get a flash freeze in the evening. We had meetings in the building. If you remember, we had the yellow tape around the area. It's all manpower. So the buildings that we have to maintain safe egress and access to, those guys will be maintaining that. It's not like they're going to be relieved of a lot of responsibility. It's just that they're going to be able to focus better on what they still will be working on.
But if you only have so much manpower, they have to be going over an allotted amount of time, right? I mean, we have to be paying overtime, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So that will be a cost savings.
It would be a cost savings on that, yeah, absolutely. Because we have to, at times, come in even on a weekend to start addressing the sidewalks that we didn't have time doing during the week, if we have a break in the weather.
Thanks.
Mr. Marsh.
Just asking the question to see if the problem can be attacked from a different angle. I mean, given the number of landscaping companies in and around Trumbull and folks who may be looking to augment their services in the winter, is this something that we can address through some sort of public-private partnership where the work is contracted out and perhaps the owners whose property or sidewalks are cleared are assessed a certain amount of money to cover that cost, as opposed to making them actually do the shoveling?
You're making me smile because I stand here at budget season each year, and we argue about $15. So it will be, if you look at 27 miles of sidewalk, that's a substantial amount of contracting. That I don't know that we would have an appetite. It will be governed by all of you.
Well, when I say an appetite, I mean presumably the cost could be passed through to the folks who are receiving the service, right?
If they're not doing it themselves.
Correct.
There definitely could be something like that explored. So you're saying that maybe we can establish the resource, and then have that address for those that can't do it themselves.
Because I think one of my concerns is, let's say there's 400 houses that are affected. You're relying on 400 people to do the right thing 400 times.
Right.
And the odds of that happening are nil, particularly if you have people who are away or elderly or rent the property, or in all of these various scenarios, which could lead to a situation where the work's not getting done and you have a dangerous situation, which is exactly what this ordinance is trying to avoid.
Right.
So if we can provide a way for the work to get done at minimal or no cost to the town and have the folks who are receiving the benefit pay for the cost, just thinking if we can actually work smarter, not harder on this one. But
It seems like it's something that we definitely can explore. It would be more the mechanism for invoicing that person that received the service, but that's something that would have to be worked out.
I mean, we're talking about if they don't do it, we're going to lien their property. We have sewer assessments. Why not have a sidewalk plowing assessment?
Yep.
And it gets, gets paid with your tax bill.
Absolutely. Something definitely that can be explored.
Any other questions or
How many houses are affected? Was that stated?
I do not have a number of houses. I'll see if we have anything that would allow us to back into that. I'm not sure. I'll look into that.
If I could, just to respond to Mr. Marsh's question, I think the ordinance as proposed covers the eventuality. All right, what it says here is if people don't clean their sidewalk, the town has the right to come in and clean the sidewalk and charge the homeowner for the service. So certainly the town could engage the services of an outside contractor. Doesn't have to be town employees. And then it says they'll lien the property. I don't think we can make that part of the tax bill. It's not going to work that way. But just as we, for instance, through the building department, the zoning enforcement officer, we have blight liens. If you don't pay your blight lien, then we have the ability to place a lien on the land records on the property. Ultimately, I suppose you could foreclose on the lien, but hopefully, again, we're not going to get to that point. I think again, right now, people are not used to the fact that they have to take care of their sidewalks. I think possibly somebody suggested earlier that the imposition of the fine doesn't have to go into effect immediately. I think you don't want to you don't want to remove the responsibility. You don't want to say for the first year you don't have to clean your sidewalk, but you could say have a preamble to that imposition of the fine that after this ordinance has been in effect for 12 months, the fine could be imposed. So anyway.
To me, the fine is the secondary concern because the concern is clearing the sidewalks.
Exactly.
So finding someone after the fact doesn't solve the immediate problem and the immediate concern, which the ordinance is there to address. So
correct.
I think that's.
But I'm just saying the ordinance does address the fact that the ordinance does not require that the town use town personnel to do the shoveling or the plow or the.
I agree with you. I was just wondering aloud if there was just a more efficient way to address the situation, and whether it's having private, a list of private contractors that are available to residents to engage, or the town can engage them on their behalf, or something. It just telling the people who on these 27 miles of sidewalks, this is yours now. I don't know that that's an efficient way of addressing the problem.
So, maybe let me ask you this. Are you suggesting that rather than imposing the obligation on the homeowner to clear their sidewalk, that instead the town is undertaking to say, here are your contractors, or the town is going to engage the services, put it out to bid, and have a contractor who's assigned to clear the sidewalks? I'm not just.
I think that's. I mean, that could be a situation where that works, where you go to the resident and say, "There's this new ordinance. we are shifting responsibility to you, the homeowners. If you would like the town to clear the sidewalk, we will engage Johnny Smith contractor to do it. You will be charged for it, but you don't have to worry about it. If you wish to opt out and do it yourself, let us know. That way, you're kind of narrowing the window of people who aren't going to do it correctly. Maybe that's an option, but again, echoing what's been said here, there's just a lot of holes here that I think we need to fill in.
From a liability point of view, I wouldn't want, once the town says that we'll assume the responsibility, as long as you pay for it, then the town is assuming the liability. So you're not relieving the town of liability in that case.
Well, but the issue wasn't the liability, it was that you didn't have enough people to cover it. If we had enough people to do the work, I don't know that we would be having this conversation because the town would just do it. So the liability, I think, yeah, I agree with you, but who's in a better position to bear that liability? Probably the town, if we have people to do the work and to do the work to specification. But if I'm relying on my grandmother to go out and shovel the sidewalk, I mean that's don't know that that's the best use of my grandmother.
But maybe her
Who's also
grandson
dead.
would be happy to do it.
All right, are there other comments or questions from the floor? Mr. Buswell.
I'd like to make a motion to make this a public hearing at a future L&A subcommittee and remove it from the October 7th, 2024 Town Council meeting.
I second that.
Just point of order, I think the correct motion would be to table the item. We'll hold it in committee. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, to hold it in committee. But then I understand the terminology to hold it in committee, but when we have the next meeting on it, what Mr. Buswell is saying is that we should have a public hearing because the seven of us have come up with a good number of questions. So I'm sure that the homeowners who are affected will have a lot more questions than we do, and perhaps we could have those questions answered before it goes to the town council.
No objection to that. I may suggest that we try to revise this to get to a more comfortable position before having a public hearing, just so that we're better prepared and we've given it due thought and perhaps come up with something more workable.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. I don't think it's ready for prime time. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered. So we have a motion on the floor to table this. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. So, resolution TC 30-84 will be tabled at this point. So that brings us to resolution number 5, which is TC 30-91. Mr. Lemoyne, would you bring that to the floor, please?
Certainly. Resolution TC 30-91. Be it resolved that the funding for the tentative agreement between the Town of Trumbull and the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 30, Trumbull, Non-Supervisory, Highway and Parks Employees Union, beginning July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2025, is hereby approved.
Thank you, Mr. Lemoyne. Good evening, sir.
Just a reminder that we have to go into executive session.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, so at this point, which is, love these microphones. They really work very well. That's sarcasm, by the way. At 8:05, the committee will go into executive session.
Need a motion and a second.
We need a motion to second.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
And
Ms.
you also
Cardano?
need to indicate which people.
Yes, I was about to do that.
Thank
Okay. So who would you like to remain here? Yourself?
Myself.
The committee members?
Obviously, the committee members. And Dan Chopik, and Cindy Katsky, and Vicky Tesoro, and Maria Pyrus.
Okay, thank you.
Jim, you want to be?
Sure.
So Margaret?
And Jim Nugent,
too.
town attorney. Collective bargaining. Yep.
Is it temporary or for the rest of the meeting?
Just for this.
For this one item?
It's going to be,
Thank you.
number 6 is going to be executive.
3 executive sessions.
Can't hear. Oh, okay. So, executive session, please? Second? Okay, thank you. All right, let it be noted that we're coming out of executive session at 8:33. Do I have a motion to move this to the town council? All in favor? Thank you. Okay, resolution TC 30-92. Guess we've gone around. Mr. Marsh, can you bring that to the floor, please?
Certainly. Resolution TC 30-92, be it resolved that the town attorney is hereby authorized to settle a certain tax appeal matter known as Trumbull Shopping Center Number 2 LLC v. the Town of Trumbull, docket number HHB CV 22-607-3382S.
Thank you. Do we need to go to executive session for this? We do. All right. We have a motion to go into executive session. Seconded. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Let it be noted that we're going into executive session at 8:35. And those that are left in the room will be the...
Here, other than the clerk and the...
What are we doing wrong?
We did.
Just did that.
Just did that. Mike seconded
I
it.
did it.
Discuss pending litigation.
peasy.
Okay, let it be noted that we are out of executive session at 8:51. All in favor of moving it to the town council, say aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you. Our next resolution is number 7, Resolution TC 30-94. Mr. Buswell, will you please bring this to the floor?
Sure. Resolution TC 30-94, be it resolved that the sale of the portion of the real estate property at 6175 Main Street is hereby approved and that Vicky A. Tesoro, first selectman, is hereby authorized to execute all documents required to finalize the sale. Public hearing, Town Council, October 7, 2024.
Thank you. Do we need to go into executive session for this?
Do.
Okay.
Oh my God. Sorry.
Making the motion.
Okay, second, okay.
Contractual
All in favor?
obligation.
Okay, we're going into
You can see.
Oh, I see. All right, let it be noted that we're back in public session at 9:13. Do I have a motion to move this to the town council? Okay, so moved. All right, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion's moved. Okay, and with that, that is the end of our business for the evening. Thank you all very much. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Second? Thank you. Carried.
You got the record so far this year, Joe. Longest meeting.
I mean,